Did Brad Garlinghouse just rug pull us on the flip of the switch moment for XRP? For a very long time, there has been this mythical idea that behind the scenes, Ripple has some sort of theoretical switch that they could flip that could transform all the business they're doing right now, every partner they're working with, onto the XRP ledger, into XRP rails, causing a mass liquidity and repricing event for XRP. But recently at a crypto conference, Brad Garlinghouse might have poured some cold water on this. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about exactly what he said, what this flip of the switch moment was even to start with. Guys, this is something you are absolutely not going to want to miss. Like always, you support me so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. And with that said, let's jump right into it. And I hope you guys enjoy the content. So I started this video and actually talk about something a little bit different than what we talked about in the intro, but I found this absolutely fascinating. There's actually an XRP conference going on in Australia right now. And to all my friends who put on the XRP wave of innovation, congratulations. This thing looks absolutely incredible. And I've been watching clips from it all day. But one of the super interesting things that I just heard from this, not the flip of the switch thing quite yet, but Brad Garlinghouse actually on stage said that since the Ripple SEC case ended, since Gary Gensler was removed from the SEC, he actually has seen Gary Gensler at the White House, and Gary Gensler has since apologized to Brad Garlinghouse, apologized for Ripple, and admitted to being wrong when it comes to his position that XRP was a security. Absolutely incredible. And, you know, I kind of wonder whether or not that was a sincere apology or kind of a, hey, we held you guys back for X amount of time. Sorry about that. But either way, a total admission in my eyes that once again, the XRP community has been right about this stuff from the start. Now, in my opinion, more than anything, this actually isn't so much of an apology in terms of, oh, I'm so sorry, like I totally had this wrong. I think it goes to this cabal that we've seen for a long time that is obviously up against Ripple and XRP. This is something that you see in the early crypto VCs. This guy, Justin Bonds, is all over X right now, nonstop tweeting. Ripple is extremely centralized. Well, of course, Ripple is centralized. Ripple's a company. Now, he's trying to allude to the XRP ledger here, but these people continually calling XRP somehow centralized, but yet they all go and talk extremely highly about something like a Solana and Ethereum. At the end of the day, it's so simple. It's so easy to understand. You've seen this with every single one of these people. These people were all financially incentivized to pump things like Solana, things like Ethereum. They were part of the Ethereum fundraising sale. They were part of the Solana token launch. These people have early allocations to these projects and are financially incentivized to talk differently about them than something like XRP. Essentially, what we're seeing here, and I've talked about this a couple times on the channel, but it's so important to realize, Ripple didn't sell XRP to VCs. Ripple didn't sell XRP to early investors. And because of that, a lot of people who felt like they were the big shots in the early crypto industry, right? The money guys in the early crypto industry, they were extremely offended that Ripple didn't need their help to launch the XRP ledger. Ripple did it on their own. Ripple kept the XRP for themselves rather than giving it to these VCs that wanted to siphon liquidity out of the project. They were extremely offended by that, and it was a threat to their business model by essentially not being incorporated into that. Because if XRP could succeed without these VCs, without paying these people to do their dirty work, what was their real point, right? Any cryptocurrency project could follow that playbook. So they're heavily incentivized, and it just seems like so many people in that early crypto ethos have fell into this idea of saying, hey, we have to actually create a cabal against people not utilizing our services. And for whatever reason, it just seems like that early crypto person, the Gary Genslers of the world, the Justin Bonds of the world, all these early VC snake people who were associated with the early Ethereum and Bitcoin days, and they just all fall into this category. And there's one thing that's clear. They all come out with these outrageously, I would call them outrageously inaccurate and outrageously just hypocritical opinions, calling Solana the next great decentralized asset and XRP centralized. absolutely no facts, nothing they can possibly reconcile this from in terms of hey, well, take a look at this amount of validators, take a look how the network takes care of consensus in this way. No, it's never anything like that. It's just the XRP ledger is centralized, this is decentralized, no facts given, listen to my opinion. It's an outright attack. It's absolutely absurd. And I just have to continue to call it out because so many people come to me and they say, this person has been in crypto since this date. Why does he think this? Guys, there is a financial incentive for them to think that way. And if there wasn't, they would explain it, right? I am happy to sit up here and explain why the XRP ledger is as, if not more, decentralized than almost any single crypto asset out there. And I've done that on countless YouTube videos. And I have offered to debate people like this on public spaces in which almost every single one of them ghosts me or ignores. So, like I said, you can say I'm financially incentivized to a certain degree on the XRP side because I hold XRP, but I'll show my work. I will go toe-to-toe with anyone. I will show my work, and we can talk about it on a public forum. They won't do it because they have no interest in it. Look, if someone wants to say Bitcoin's more decentralized than the XRP ledger, whatever, right? Bitcoin is a little bit different in terms of how it got its ethos. Bitcoin sacrifices a lot of scalability functions. It sacrifices a lot of functionality to make it so infinite amount of people can run a Bitcoin miner. If you want to say that because of that, Bitcoin's somehow more decentralized than XRP, look, I'll fight on certain points, but I think that's not as bad of an argument to make. But if you're going to come at me and say Ethereum or Solana are more decentralized than XRP, that's an absolute joke to me. And you're going to continue to see that as we move forward into crypto. The important thing to realize is it absolutely doesn't matter. The smartest people in the room, they don't care about things like that. It's not resonating, and Ripple continues to land massive deals with big financial institutions that are worried about functionality over these artificial pieces of ethos and altruism these other VCs try to throw around in there so people give them money to raise money for their project. Regardless, though, I'll stop ranting about that. Let's move on to what I really wanted to talk about, which is Brad Garlinghouse saying there is not one flip of the switch moment. There is really thousands of switches until it really does have an exponential impact. Now, a lot of people, I think, have very much subscribed to this idea of a flip of the switch moment. That one day a flip will be switched and XRP will be millions of dollars. And for a very long time, I have agreed with a flip of the switch moment, but not a single flip of the switch moment. I am 100% on Brad Garlinghouse's side here when he says there's thousands of switches. And let's talk about what Brad really means when he says there's thousands of switches. Guys, what Brad is saying is they have thousands of partners who are plugged into Ripple's traditional financial offering, and they will soon be bridged over to the XRP ledger. I guarantee you what Brad is saying here is that each one of those companies, each one of those partners is its own independent switch. And what Brad foresees is over time, he is just going to keep flipping those switches, converting more of those financial institutions over to the XRP ledger, making an exponential impact over time. For a long time, a lot of the people early in the XRP ecosystem pushed this idea of a single switch. But guys, if I'm Bank of America, right, I don't care what JP Morgan's timeline is. I'm doing things on my timeline, right? I'm not going to let Brad turn on XRP Ledger for me if I'm not ready for it. With that said, though, I think I will be turned over because as soon as my competitors start getting turned on, look, I'm going to want my switch flipped pretty quickly. It's super important to understand Ripple's business, and this quote right here makes a ton of sense. Ripple is building traditional financial services that link to the XRP Ledger. Every financial institution has its own independent relationship with Ripple, the company, and Ripple is on a different timeline and a different product scope with each one of these financial institutions. Each one of them has their own switch before they're ready to get onto the prime time space age decentralized financial system that is the XRP Ledger. Some financial institutions, maybe 95% of the way there. Some large central banks, maybe they're 10% of the way there. The important thing is that Ripple has the relationship, right? There's only one path, and that path goes directly to the XRP Ledger. It's not that when JP Morgan flips a switch, every single one of other Ripple's partners is going to flip the switch at the same time. Every partner has their own switch. But the important thing is they are on a one-way road that goes directly to XRP. What Brad is saying here is extremely powerful. He is saying that what he has done is got everyone in the room, right? He has got each one of these financial institutions in the room, and they are now being incorporated into Ripple's product stack. Are they all at the very end of the road yet? Is every single one of them ready to flip the switch and take that leap into the crypto world? No. But what Brad is saying is the more they flip the switches, right, the more financial institutions that are brought over and brought into the new digital financial system, the more the people in the room right next door are going to say, hey, they just flipped the switch on. We're going to be late if we don't get this thing going. This is the spiderweb effect, right? This is the snowball. This is one financial institution getting brought on board, and suddenly all its neighbors, right, all its competitors saying, hey, we better get on board and create that connection as well. The snowball gets rolling, it gets bigger and bigger. It's a network effect, it's mass advertising. It brings in more people, it sucks more people in. That is what is being happening, and that is that exponential curve, right? It's not linear, it's not one person at a time, no. It will get faster and faster, those clicks will keep going at a quicker and quicker rate, but it's not just one. These are independent businesses with independent value propositions and independent compliance calculations on when they take those next steps. And what Brad is saying is that this all equals one big switch over time, but it's going to take each one of these financial institutions being onboarded in order to make that mass adoption and that big impact happen. What we know from Brad Garlinghouse's quote right here is there are thousands of people in line. And he knows that as those switches start getting flipped over, the effect will be exponential. I think this is exactly how it correlates into XRP's price. With clarity, with financial institutions getting on board, these switches happen faster and faster, ramping up the pace of XRP adoption until anyone who hasn't flipped that switch is being left in the dust and being put at a massive financial disadvantage to everyone else who's adopted the internet while everyone else is mailing letters. Guys, this is how we have mass adoption into crypto. These financial institutions are not going to do it themselves. Ripple has already put them on the bridge. Ripple has taken them down the path. Now it's just who gets to the other side first. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update, and for now,